Name of the attacker. He is Khalid Masood, 52 years old, born here in Britain. Local news media are reporting that he had worked as an English teacher and was a Muslim convert. Apparently, latterly he'd been living in the north of Britain, although he'd originally come from Kent in the south. He had a string of criminal convictions, grievous bodily harm, some possession of weapons offenses, but he wasn't the subject of any current criminal investigation. And we had heard earlier from Prime Minister Theresa May that he had at some time in the past been investigated by the internal domestic security services for links to violent extremism. However, he had not been on the radar very recently.
I'm the National Head of Counter-Terrorism Policing, and I'm also Acting Deputy Commissioner. I want to make a statement about this afternoon's events, and I'm going to try and cover three main areas: what we know about the incident, the ongoing operation, and what London can expect over the coming days. As you know, we've declared this as a terrorist incident, and the Counter-Terrorism Command are carrying out a full-scale investigation into the events today. The attack started when a car was driven over Westminster Bridge, hitting and injuring a number of members of the public, also including 3 police officers on their way back from a commendation ceremony. The car then crashed near to Parliament, and at least one man, armed with the knife, continued the attack and tried to enter Parliament. Sadly, I can confirm that now 4 people have died. That includes the police officer who was protecting Parliament, and one man we believe to be the attacker who was shot by a police firearms officer.
As we just heard from Terry, that suspect was known to authorities. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, but British Prime Minister Theresa May called the violence a sick and depraved terrorist attack. Let's go to ABC's Alex Marquardt with the latest on the investigation right now. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Amy. That's right. He was also a British national who was known to the intelligence services. And this morning, the authorities are saying that he was inspired by what they're calling international Islamist terrorism. Overnight, raids carried out in London, the city of Birmingham, and elsewhere as police and intelligence services hunt for information on the background of the attacker and any possible ties to terror groups. The UK's top counterterrorism official announcing this morning that 8 were arrested in the 6 raids that were carried out. This Birmingham apartment searched by the authorities, it's still unclear what links those arrested had to the attacker. A witness who works near that apartment saying, quote, "The man from London lived here." The BBC reporting that the grey Hyundai SUV that the attacker used to plow into pedestrians on Westminster Bridge was rented in a nearby suburb. Little has been revealed about the identity of the attacker, seen here after he was shot by police.
Which continues to be borne out by our investigation that this attacker acted alone and was inspired by international terrorism.
Benjamin Hall is on scene. We don't have an update, Benjamin, do we, on this assailant, his condition, whether he said anything?
No, there's very little news coming from the police at all at the moment. You were saying, though, that this is one of the most surveilled places in the world. Not just that, but all major networks have officers around here, so we are getting incredible footage, and no doubt that was one of the aims of this attacker. And of course, as you say, the police will be putting that all together and building a picture of exactly what happened. I'm hearing that this was an unsophisticated attack, but that is exactly the way that many terrorists might operate now. We have seen the vehicle-borne weapon used again and again recently because, frankly, there is very little you can do to stop it. So we know that this man drove along on the bridge, which you can see behind me. He used that vehicle as a weapon, as has been done before, both in Berlin and in Nice, and then he carried on using it. So not unsophisticated at all, and in fact ISIS have called in some of their propaganda for people to come and use vehicles as weapons. And of course, as the police said, you heard him recently, there is no speculation about who was responsible for this. But again, listening to Jennifer Griffin, she is reminding us that this happens at a time when the US and the US-led coalition is ramping up attacks on the ISIS capital of Raqqa. They really are on the back foot there, and again they are calling for people who might be inspired by them to carry out attacks like this.
I heard a bang of some sort, and I then looked and saw this grey 4x4 Mercedes travelling along the pavement, hitting people. It seemed to be deliberately, when I glanced to my right as I was watching, it seemed to come off the pavement but deliberately went back on again.
There's almost the world just sort of slowed down. It was like being in a Hollywood movie, if you like, as opposed to real life. I didn't quite know what had happened. I thought maybe somebody had a heart attack at the wheel and hit the accelerator. I didn't for a second think it was someone was intentionally, driving a car at me.
We were actually on the bridge. We heard gunshots, what we thought was gunshots. Turned around and we saw the car ploughed into a lady, and I think it was a lady. I'm not 100% sure, but underneath the wheel, you could hear screams. And then we heard gunshots again, and as we looked along the bridge, because we were only crawling along the bridge, there was bodies, literally.
Must have been about 10
at least
bodies.
10, 12 bodies, all in different
just lying
places.
in different places along the bridge.
We saw somebody laying two cloths over a body in the recess by the bridge, and then up the steps they were holding a shield round somebody and doing something to that person.
Shots really three shots down to 10 feet away from me. It was that loud, and I was like, whoa.
There was 6 police officers in full body tactical gear with helmets, MP5s, the full works, and they stacked up by the corner of the Houses of Parliament. After about 30 seconds of them standing there, another 25 police officers turned up in full body armour and tactical gear with guns, and then the whole group of them had decided to storm into the Houses of Parliament.
2 or 3 shots rang out. My colleagues who were in front of me, the ones at the sort of front of the procession as it were, turned and presumably under instruction from the security people said, out, run, get out the building. Security is always a big issue. It's been tightened again over the years, but the democratic process must carry on. Parliament has got to be seen, it's got to sit in public. That's the heart of our democratic process.